Most people think attraction is about what you add. The right clothes, the right words, the right energy, the perfect response at the perfect moment. They believe if they just accumulate enough of the right qualities, enough of the right behaviors, enough of the right performances, they'll finally become magnetic. But the Stoics knew something else, something that cuts through all of that noise. Attraction isn't built, it's revealed. And what reveals it isn't more, it's less. It's the stripping away of everything false, everything desperate, everything performed. Here's what they understood that you're still getting wrong. You've been taught that being attractive means being seen, noticed, validated, chosen. So you optimize, you perform, you curate, you react faster, speak louder, show up harder. You monitor every interaction like it's a test you might fail. You calculate your words, you measure your energy, you adjust your personality based on who's in the room. And somehow, the more effort you pour into this, the more you try to be magnetic, the less people actually feel drawn to you. That's not an accident, that's not bad luck, that's the cost of misunderstanding what power actually is. Real attraction doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to. It doesn't walk into a room demanding attention or validation or proof that it matters. It operates on a frequency most people can't even hear yet. It's subtle, it's calm. It's the gravitational pull of someone who has stopped trying to be anything other than what they are. And in 2026, while everyone else is still performing, while they're still optimizing their masks and polishing their personas, you're going to learn how to stop. Because the 9 habits I'm about to show you don't make you more attractive by adding something to who you are. They don't give you a new skill or a new trick or a new way to manipulate perception. They strip away everything that's been covering up the power you already have. We're going to move through this in 3 parts. First, we'll examine the hidden cost of chasing attraction the way you've been taught, the psychological trap that keeps you performing instead of being. Second, we'll explore the Stoic reframe that changes how power actually works, how attraction operates not through addition, but through subtraction. And third, we'll walk through the exact practices that make this real in your daily life, the specific habits that transform theory into lived experience. By the end, you'll understand why silence is more magnetic than speaking, why boundaries feel like seduction, why the most attractive thing you can do is stop trying. Let's begin. Let's start with what no one tells you. The truth that hides beneath all the self-help advice and the attraction guides and the endless content promising to make you irresistible. Every time you react to get a reaction, you lose, not because reaction itself is weak, not because responding to people makes you less than, but because reactive behavior signals something specific. It signals that your emotional state is for sale, that your inner world is determined by external conditions. Someone says something sharp, you defend. Someone pulls away, you chase. Someone tests your boundary, you prove yourself. Someone questions your worth, you build a case. And in every single one of those moments, in every reaction that seeks validation or approval or understanding, you've just told them something crucial. You've told them that they set the terms. You've handed them your remote control. Most people call that connection. They call it caring. They call it being responsive or present or emotionally available. But the Stoics would call it something else. They'd call it dependency. And dependency, no matter how much you dress it up with noble language, no matter how much you convince yourself it's love or loyalty or commitment, will never be attractive. Because attraction, real attraction, moves toward calm, toward center, toward groundedness. It moves toward the person who doesn't flinch when the room shifts, the person who can hold their emotional state regardless of what's happening around them. You've been performing stability while leaking desperation from every pore. You've been saying the right words while your energy screams need. And people feel that difference even if they can't name it, even if they can't articulate why something feels off. They feel the gap between your performance and your reality. Think about the last time you really wanted someone to like you. A new friend, a romantic interest, a professional connection. someone whose approval felt important. Notice what happened to your behavior. You became more accommodating, more available, more eager to please. You laughed a little harder at their jokes. You agreed a little faster with their opinions. You made yourself smaller so they could feel bigger. And you thought you were being strategic. You thought you were building rapport. But what you were actually doing was training them to see you as less valuable than you are. Because value isn't communicated through accommodation. It's communicated through standards, through boundaries, through the ability to say no without guilt and yes without desperation. So here's the reframe, the shift that changes everything. Attraction is not a reward you earn by being enough. It's not a prize given to those who perform perfectly or accommodate endlessly or prove their worth through endless availability. Attraction is a gravity you create by becoming still, by becoming so anchored in your own center that people feel pulled toward your calm. And stillness, real stillness, the kind that creates magnetic pull, requires you to fundamentally change how you relate to three things: attention, validation, and control. These 9 habits are that change. They're not tips, they're not tricks, they're a complete restructuring of how you show up in the world. Let's go through them. First habit: stop explaining yourself to people who didn't ask. This sounds simple, it sounds obvious, but watch yourself for the next 3 days and count how many times you over-explain, how many times you defend a choice no one challenged, how many times you build a case for a decision that's already been made. Every time you do this, every time you over-explain, you're doing something specific. You're negotiating for approval. You're saying, please understand me so I can feel okay about my choice. Please validate this so I don't have to sit with the discomfort of standing alone in my decision. But attractive people don't negotiate their reality. They don't submit their choices for peer review. They state what is and move on. When you make a decision, when you set a boundary, when you choose your path, you don't owe anyone a thesis defense. You don't owe them a breakdown of your reasoning, or a justification of your priorities, or a detailed explanation of how you arrived at this conclusion. You owe yourself alignment. You owe yourself integrity. You owe yourself the dignity of making choices that serve your growth, and then standing in those choices without apology. And alignment doesn't need a defense. It doesn't require external validation. It just is. The next time someone questions your boundary, your plan, your no, try this. Smile, nod, acknowledge that you heard them, and then say nothing else. Don't elaborate. Don't justify. Don't fill the silence with nervous explanation. Just let your decision stand on its own. Watch what happens. Most people, when met with that kind of calm certainty, will feel the weight of your conviction. They'll feel that you're not asking for permission. You're informing them of reality. And suddenly the thing they were just testing, the boundary they were just pushing, becomes something they respect. Not because you convinced them, but because you didn't need to. But there's a deeper reason this works. A reason that leads directly into the second habit. Second habit: let people misunderstand you. This one breaks people. This one causes actual psychological pain for those who've built their entire identity on being understood, because you've been trained, from childhood forward, to correct every false impression, every bad take, every misread of your intent. Someone gets the wrong idea about why you did something. You rush to correct it. Someone interprets your silence as anger. You explain that you were just thinking. Someone assumes your boundary is personal. You reassure them it's not about them. And in every one of these corrections, you're revealing something. You're revealing that being misunderstood feels like a threat, that other people's perceptions of you have power over your inner peace. But the need to be understood by everyone is a cage. It means you're still performing for an audience that doesn't even matter. It means your sense of self is still externally validated. It means you're still letting other people's confusion determine your emotional state. The Stoics didn't care if the crowd got it. They didn't lose sleep over whether the masses understood their philosophy or appreciated their choices or correctly interpreted their motives. They cared if they got it. They cared if their actions aligned with their principles, and that's where your power lives, in the ability to let someone be completely wrong about you and feel nothing. No urge to fix it, no need to defend, no compulsion to correct the record, just calm, because you know who you are, you know why you made that choice, you know what your boundaries protect, you know what your silence means, and their confusion, their misinterpretation, their wrong assumptions, none of that changes your reality. When you stop managing perceptions, when you release the exhausting work of trying to control how everyone sees you, you stop being controlled by them. You stop giving them power over your peace. And that freedom, that complete liberation from the need to be understood, is attractive in a way words never will be. It communicates a level of self-possession that most people never achieve. It says, "I'm so secure in who I am that your wrong opinion doesn't threaten me." Third habit, speak less. You think silence makes you invisible. You think if you're not contributing, if you're not adding your voice, if you're not filling space with your presence, you'll be overlooked, forgotten, dismissed. But silence does the opposite. Silence makes you expensive. When you're not filling every gap with noise, when you're not rushing to contribute or prove or perform, people start wondering. They start wondering what you're thinking, what you're observing, what conclusions you're drawing. They lean in, they pay attention, they assign you depth, whether you've earned it or not. Most people are so terrified of quiet that they'll say anything to avoid it. They'll fill space with obvious observations, unnecessary comments, repeated points, anything to prove they're present and engaged and worthy of being in the room. And in doing so, they become forgettable. They become background noise, because when everyone is speaking, no one is actually being heard. You don't have to be the most interesting person in the room. You have to be interested. You have to be genuinely curious about what's being said, instead of just waiting for your turn to talk. And you have to be comfortable with the space between words. That comfort, that ease with silence, signals something rare in a world addicted to noise. It signals that you don't need the conversation to validate your presence. You're already whole. You're already enough. Let other people perform. You just observe. You listen. You process. And when you do speak, when you finally break your silence, people listen, because scarcity creates value. But this only works if you pair it with the next habit. Fourth habit, move slower, physically, verbally, emotionally, in every dimension of your being. Slow down. Rushed energy is anxious energy, and anxiety, no matter how you package it, repels. It makes people uncomfortable. It makes them feel like something's wrong, like there's a problem that needs solving, like chaos is just beneath the surface. When you slow down, when you deliberately move through the world at your own pace, instead of reacting to everyone else's urgency, you signal control. Not control over others, not manipulation or domination. Control over yourself. You're not reacting, you're responding. You're not catching up, you're setting pace. Watch someone who moves through a room slowly, not lazily, not without purpose, but with deliberate, unhurried movement. They don't look incompetent. They don't look lost. They look like they own the time they're in, like time bends around them instead of the other way around. That's what you're cultivating. The ability to be unhurried even when the world is spinning, even when everyone around you is rushing and panicking and demanding immediate response. You stay at your pace. It changes how people receive you. Because speed says I'm trying to keep up. Speed says I'm reactive. Speed says I don't control my reality. But stillness, deliberate slowness, says something else entirely. It says I already am. I'm already here. I don't need to rush because I'm not chasing anything. Fifth habit, stop chasing closure. This is where most people stay trapped for years. You want the last word, the final clarity, the clean ending where everything makes sense and both parties understand exactly what happened and why. You want the conversation that ties up all loose ends, the explanation that makes the pain make sense, the resolution that allows you to file this chapter away neatly and move forward with peace. And that need, That desperate hunger for closure makes you weak, because it puts your peace in someone else's hands. It makes your healing dependent on their cooperation, and some people will never give you that cooperation. Some people will leave things messy on purpose. Some people will withhold closure as a form of control. Attractive people don't need the story to be finished. They can walk away from the middle of the sentence and sleep fine. That's not coldness, that's not emotional avoidance, that's freedom. When you stop needing people to confirm your version of events, when you stop needing them to admit they were wrong, or acknowledge your pain, or validate your experience, you stop being hostage to their narrative. You let the chapter end badly. You let the conversation stay unfinished. You let the question hang in the air unanswered. And you move on anyway. And that ability, that capacity to release without resolution, is one of the most magnetic things a human being can do. It demonstrates a level of emotional maturity that most people never reach. It says, I'm not controlled by what's unfinished. I'm not imprisoned by ambiguity. I can sit with uncertainty and discomfort and unanswered questions. I'm controlled by what I choose next, by where I direct my energy, by what I build going forward. The past doesn't need to be perfectly resolved for me to step into my future. Sixth habit: protect your attention like it's sacred. Because it is. Your attention is the most valuable resource you possess. Not your time, not your money, not your connections or your skills or your credentials. Your attention, where you place your focus, what you allow into your mind, what you feed your consciousness. Every time you give your attention to something that doesn't deserve it, every time you scatter your focus across a dozen meaningless distractions, you drain your presence. And presence is the core of attraction. You can't be magnetic if you're distracted, if you're halfway in every conversation, if you're nodding while thinking about something else, if you're performing engagement while your mind is already 3 steps ahead or 3 days behind. People feel that split. They feel when you're not actually there, and it makes them feel unimportant. Even if you're smiling, even if you're saying the right words, even if you're technically participating, the energy of divided attention communicates disinterest more clearly than any words could. The Stoics would tell you that attention is the only thing you truly own. Everything else can be taken. Your possessions can be stolen. Your relationships can end. Your health can fail. Your reputation can be destroyed. But where you place your mind, moment to moment, that's yours. That's the one arena of absolute sovereignty. So stop scattering it. Stop treating it like it's infinite. Stop giving it away to people and things and thoughts that don't serve your growth. When you're with someone, be fully there. Give them the gift of your undivided presence. When you're alone, be fully alone. Be fully in your own company, without the constant need for external stimulation. No halfway, no performance, just presence. And people will feel that depth without you having to say a word. They'll feel that when they have your attention, they have something rare. Seventh habit: let people come to you. This is where most people break. This is the habit that feels like death to those who've built their identity on pursuit. Because waiting feels like losing. Stillness feels like giving up. Not reaching out feels like you don't care. But pursuit is not power. Pursuit is proof that you're not enough on your own. It's proof that you need something from them to feel complete. When you stop chasing, when you release your grip on people and outcomes and relationships, 2 things happen. First, the people who were only around because you fed their ego disappear. The people who stayed because you were convenient, because you were always available, because you made them feel important without requiring anything in return, those people vanish. And that feels like loss. It feels like rejection. But it's actually clarity. Second, the people who actually value you start moving closer. The people who see your worth, who appreciate your presence, who want mutual investment instead of one-sided pursuit, those people step forward. You become a choice instead of a convenience. And that shift changes everything. It's not about playing games. It's not about pretending you don't care or artificially creating distance or manipulating people through withdrawal. It's about having enough respect for your own energy that you don't spend it on people who aren't spending theirs on you. Stoicism teaches reciprocity, not scorekeeping, not transactional relationships where every gesture must be immediately repaid, but alignment. When effort is mutual, you don't have to convince anyone to stay. You don't have to build elaborate cases for why they should value you. They already do, and if they don't, your pursuit won't create that value. It will just make you exhausting. Eighth habit: embrace discomfort without announcing it. Everyone's struggling, everyone's carrying weight, everyone's dealing with challenges and pain and difficulty. That's not unique to you. What is unique is how you carry it. Most people can't stop talking about their struggle. They need you to know how hard it is, how much they're handling, how heavy the burden is, how close they are to breaking. And that constant broadcast of suffering makes them exhausting to be near. It turns every interaction into emotional labor. It makes their presence feel like a drain instead of a gift. You don't have to hide your pain. You don't have to pretend everything's perfect, or put on a fake smile, or deny your reality. But you don't have to perform it either. You don't have to make your struggle everyone else's problem. When you can hold tension without making it everyone else's emergency, when you can process difficulty without constantly seeking sympathy or validation or rescue, you become safe. People trust you because you're not leaking chaos. You're not dumping your unprocessed pain onto everyone around you. You're actually doing the work of processing it. And that quiet competence is rare. It's the kind of strength people want to be around. Not because you're perfect, but because you're solid. Because they know that being near you won't mean becoming your therapist or your parent or your emotional support system. Ninth habit: know when to leave rooms, conversations, relationships, situations that no longer serve you, jobs that have stopped teaching you, friendships that have become toxic, romantic relationships that have died, but neither person will admit it. Most people stay too long. They wait for permission to leave. They wait for the other person to end it. They wait for circumstances to become so unbearable that leaving is the only option. They stay until they're forced out. But attractive people leave early, not out of fear, not out of avoidance, out of clarity. They can feel when the energy has shifted, when the respect is gone, when the mutual investment has become one-sided, when the growth has stopped, when the relationship has become a holding pattern instead of a catalyst. And they don't fight it. They don't try to resurrect what's already dead. They don't pour endless energy into convincing someone to value them. They just go. No drama, no long goodbye, no need to make the other person understand or agree or validate the decision. Just a clean exit, because they understand something crucial. They understand that staying in the wrong place is a betrayal of who they're becoming, that loyalty to dead things is not noble. It's self-abandonment, that their future self is depending on their current self to make the hard choice, to walk away from comfort and familiarity and history when those things are preventing growth. And they value their future more than they fear the discomfort of walking away. Here's what all 9 of these habits have in common. Here's the thread that connects them. They require you to stop performing and start protecting your energy, your attention, your standards, your peace, your future. Most people think attraction is about being more charming, more available, more flexible, more understanding, more accommodating, more everything. They think if they just add enough good qualities, they'll finally become magnetic. But the Stoics knew the truth that cuts through all the performance and all the strategy and all the exhausting work of trying to be enough. Attraction is about being whole, and wholeness doesn't beg, it doesn't chase, it doesn't explain, it doesn't perform. It just exists, calm, clear, contained, self-sufficient, and that containment is what people feel when they're near you. It's not what you say, it's what you don't need to say. It's not what you do, it's what you refuse to do. It's not how you react, it's how you remain unreactive. It's the way you hold yourself when everything around you is asking you to break. when every external force is demanding a reaction, when everyone wants you to prove yourself or explain yourself or defend yourself, and you just don't. You just stay centered. You just remain in your power. 2026 will belong to the people who understand this. While everyone else is optimizing their performance, you'll be eliminating the need to perform at all. While they're chasing validation, you'll be so grounded in your own value that validation becomes irrelevant. While they're explaining and defending and proving, you'll be resting in quiet certainty. That's not arrogance. That's not superiority. That's alignment. That's what it looks like when your external behavior matches your internal reality. When there's no gap between who you are and who you pretend to be. And alignment is the most attractive thing a human being can embody. Because it's rare, because most people are performing, most people are split, most people are pretending to be confident while feeling desperate, pretending to be fine while falling apart, pretending to have boundaries while accepting anything, pretending to know who they are while morphing into whoever the room needs them to be. That split is exhausting, and people can feel it even when they can't name it. So stop adding, start subtracting, stop reaching, start settling into yourself, stop performing strength, start building actual strength, the kind that doesn't need an audience, the kind that exists whether anyone sees it or not, because the kind of attraction that lasts isn't built on what you do for people. It's built on who you are when no one's watching. It's built on the choices you make when there's no one to impress. It's built on the standards you hold when there's no external pressure to hold them. And the moment you stop needing to be seen is the moment you become impossible to ignore. The moment you stop needing validation is the moment people start seeking yours. The moment you stop chasing is the moment people start wondering why you're not chasing them. That's not manipulation. That's not a trick. That's just the natural consequence of being whole. Because wholeness is magnetic. It creates gravity. It pulls people in without trying, without strategy, without performance. If that's the kind of power you want, if that's the kind of presence you want to cultivate, if you're ready to stop performing and start being, then stay here. There's more coming. Because this work, this shift from performance to presence, from chasing to being chased, from explaining to simply existing, this is the work that changes everything. Not just how attractive you are, but how peaceful you become, how free you feel, how much energy you reclaim when you stop spending it on people who don't value it. This is the path. These are the habits. Now the only question is whether you'll actually walk it.